In your child's world, you and the other parent are the most important characters. How you play your role has a lasting effect on your child throughout life. Your child wants to grow up to be you someday. What will they learn from you? What will they remember about how you and their other parent treat one another? Are you teaching them how to share and to solve problems through give and take? Or are you teaching them by your example that life is a battleground and that the only way to survive is to fight and win? The hidden losers in families where parents are locked in this kind of conflict are the children. They can become depressed and hopeless as they see no way out of the perpetual chaos in their parents' war zone, a war zone they cannot escape. Parents too can feel helpless as they see no way to stop the repeated conflict and tension they experience in the relationship. My name is Anna, and I am a parent who fell stuck in this type of conflict. Fortunately for my son, I was referred to a parent education group, which really helped me see how I could make changes to improve my situation, even if my son's other parent did not want to change. I invite you to watch with me now as you see how two parents, Tamiko and Donovan, who are caught in this kind of struggle, learned some key tools which helped them get beyond the animosity that had built a wall between them. By participating in a group of other parents experiencing conflict in their relationships, Tamiko and Donovan learned how to put their child's needs first and regain respect for one another. The outcome for Tamiko and Donovan is quite unique to their relationship, but I believe that you will find that change is possible, even if the other parent never changes. And the best news is that your child will learn by your example how to be a hero in solving problems and reducing conflict. Let's begin by joining the parenting group and meeting Tamiko and Donovan and the other participants.
Welcome to Between Two Parents. You're all here because a family law judge has become concerned that your child may be affected by the ongoing conflict between you and your child's other parent. You may be thinking as you hear these words, but it's not my fault. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the unreasonable way the other parent is and always was. And if you feel this way, that you're somehow the victim of someone else's behavior, you're certainly not alone. Many parents who wind up in court over child custody feel this way. You, like these other parents, may have given up hope that there's a solution, and you feel hopeless, discouraged, and angry. I'm John, a parent educator with many years of experience working with families like yours. And I'm here to reassure you that there are ways to improve your situation, even if the other parent does not change. Let's begin by turning to the first exercise in your workbook.
In this first exercise, the participants are asked to reflect on their own behaviors in their relationship. As you listen to these statements, take a minute to think about whether these statements describe your behavior before we return to the group. I have difficulty controlling my anger at the other parent in front of our child. I have become so angry with the other parent that I threaten to limit the other parent's time with our child. When my child is with the other parent, I become very anxious about my child's safety and well-being. When my child is with the other parent, I often call or text to make sure my child is safe. I've given up trying to speak directly to the other parent because every time we speak, we end up arguing and nothing gets resolved. I believe that my child needs to understand the mistakes that the other parent has made and why we are not together as a family. I think my child is old enough to understand the court process, so I sat down with her and went over court documents. The other parent repeatedly takes me back to court. My child has no real desire to spend time with the other parent. I sometimes have needed to explain to my child that he could not go on an outing or have new clothes or toys because the other parent does not provide enough financial support.
So what did we learn? Were you able to identify with any of these statements?
These questions, man, I don't get the point. Doesn't everyone do some of these things sometimes? I don't see how talking here with a group of strangers is gonna help me see my daughter.
I realize that this can be very frustrating in the beginning, and you may have many conflicting feelings. Can you tell me which one of these responses you identified with?
Well, I have to admit it, I've yelled. I mean, like, really yelled at Tamiko in front of my daughter. I can't help it. That's how we express ourselves in my family. It doesn't mean anything, but she always overreacts. And...
May I say something here? I have a problem when he raises his voice at me, and I am not sure how can we ever work together in this class. When he's showing this much anger, I don't feel comfortable that he can take care of Kaylee. After all, she's only 3 years old.
Say, man, I know what you mean. I've been really frustrated with my ex, too. But it sounds to me like you're really hurting because you haven't seen your daughter.
Roberto has brought up a really important point that you'll hear over and over throughout this program. Sometimes our feelings of frustration and anger are covering other intense feelings of pain and sadness when we feel that we've lost something very important, like a connection with our children. One thing that you'll learn here is how to recognize your feelings and take some time to consider how to communicate them. Stopping and thinking can help you get what you want. In the coming weeks, we can take an example like Donovan and Tamiko shared with us and see how Tamiko may feel if Donovan expressed himself differently. And it could be that Donovan can get a different result. I would like for each of you to introduce yourselves by telling us your first name, your child's name and age, how long you were together, and how long you've been separated. If you are willing, tell the group something about your experience with the last exercise.
Well, I think you all heard a bit about our relationship already. I think I would have to call our relationship hostile because of the anger that I feel from Donovan. But I don't want it to be like this. We never actually lived together. Kaylee and I live with my parents. I never in my life expected that Kaylee would grow up without seeing her dad.
I can't believe you are saying this. It's been impossible to know what you really think. Everything I hear from you is through your parents who would rather have me out of Kaylee's life completely. Up until you spoke, I would have labeled our relationship as hostile, but for the first time in weeks, I feel like maybe there's some hope if I could deal directly with you.
Thank you, Tamiko and Donovan. You just gave the group an excellent example of how change can begin if both parties are open to communicating directly with each other about their child.
As the first group meeting ends, the parents have homework assignments. The parents are asked to find a favorite picture of their child and bring it to the second session. They're also asked to sign a commitment to change their own behavior toward the other parent during the course of the program. By signing it, they agree to communicate directly with one another and not use their child as a messenger. They also agree to protect their child from exposure to their disagreements or to negative discussions about the other parent. I think you will see as we rejoin the group, some interesting changes are beginning to take place as the parents turn their focus on their child and onto actions they can take to improve the situation.
Oh no. Is she yours? So cute.
So he's a righty or a lefty?
Oh, no.
Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? I wonder if there's anyone in the group that would like to share their experiences about the homework or any other reactions to the group so far.
It's interesting. Me and Patty haven't really talked in such a long time, let alone be sitting together in the same table. I think writing on the commitment to change has helped me a lot because I can agree to these things for 6 weeks, and maybe, just maybe, it could last longer. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm somewhat hopeful.
At this point, I don't have much of a choice if I want to see Kaylee. I had to sign that commitment to change.
I feel a lot like Donovan. So whether or not I agree with everything I'm hearing, I don't really have a choice. I don't know any other way to get more time with my kids.
So what I'm hearing is that at least some of you have come to this program in despair because you've tried all the other usual problem-solving methods and they're not getting you where you want to go. Is that right? The reality is, though, that your child has two parents, and both of you will be in his or her life forever. That will not change. The choice about who the other parent is has already been made, and that person is sitting across from you at this table. The only remaining choice is how you and your co-parent will behave towards one another. That choice is an individual one that only you can make. Remember, you are already a role model for your child. What kind of role model you are is your choice. Stop and think about it for a minute. This is probably the most singular, powerful message in this program. How you behave as a parent towards the other parent is your choice. Some of you may still be feeling that the problems in your relationships are the other parent's fault. And if that parent were simply out of the picture, life would simply be so much easier. But stop and think. While that might seem great for you, what would it be like for your child if he or she had only one parent? I'm wondering if any of you have been affected by divorce or separation and you've struggled with any of these issues.
I never knew my dad. That's what breaks me up about not seeing Kaylee. Yeah, a few pictures when he and my mom were together, but I don't remember him. And I knew very little about him. I just stopped asking my mom because she had that look on her face like, don't go there. It's a hole in my life. It's a big unknown.
My dad is such an important part of my life and my kid's life. I can't imagine how that would be.
And Donovan, you have described what so many of us parents feel, the deep desire to give our children what we never had. Thank you for sharing these experiences. Although these memories may be painful, they are a valuable window into how our children feel. Now let's meet these children that we've been talking about.
This is Kaylee. Not like really a current picture, but I guess I chose it because I was with her when she first started walking. She'll be 4 next month.
My kids. Michael's 11 and Cassie is 8. Here's Cassie with my father.
Do you have to do that? I mean, talk about them like they're yours only. Sorry, it bothers me.
Lisa, before you show us your photos, can you tell the group what you were reacting to that David said?
I know David does a lot with the kids. Like, he always has. But when he says things like, my kids and our family trip, it's as if they're a family and I am an outsider. And it really makes me angry. And yeah, I get hurt.
I see. That's a good example for all. While you're in the group, let's get a new habit started of referring to your children as our children rather than my children. This simple change can go a long way in reinforcing the idea that even though you parents are no longer together, your central relationship as parents will always exist. Now, Lisa, let's take a look at your pictures.
As the facilitator suggested, just by changing one word from my to our children, you acknowledge that your relationship as parents will always exist. Take a few minutes to think about the alternative. Think about how your own child might feel knowing that his parents don't get along, or even worse, that his parents have no contact with one another because of the deep distrust they harbor towards one another. Even very young children can feel the tension between adults and are listening to adult conversations that you might have about the other parent, even when you think they do not hear you. Children caught in the middle of adult conflict sometimes feel forced to choose between parents, as if one parent is the good guy and the other parent is the bad guy. We call these loyalty binds. The parents in the group are asked to consider how they may have created a situation where their children feel caught in the middle. To uncover how they may have contributed to creating loyalty binds for their children, they were asked to write a statement about how they told their child about why the parents are together. Let's hear how they dealt with this question.
Tamiko, would you be willing to share your response?
I really haven't talked to Kaylee at all about her dad, and she only asks about him once in a while. My parents are pretty strict, and they're concerned about Donovan coming at all now. If Kaylee starts to say anything about her dad when my parents are around, I just change the subject.
So if I got it right, in the interest of keeping the peace with your parents, you avoid mentioning Donovan at all. Does that mean that there aren't any pictures of him around the house?
That's right.
But as I recall, Donovan had pretty regular contact until the last 6 months. Is that right?
That's right.
How do you think Kaylee is affected by this change? And do you think she has been put in the middle in some way?
Well, I'm beginning to see that she's been affected, and even though she's so little, she has definitely overheard some of the arguments with my parents and my parents' statements about Donovan. She seemed to like it when Donovan came over. She'd pull on his hand until he sat down in this one old chair to read Goodnight Moon. Always the same book over and over again.
And now it's not even safe to mention his name.
I see what you mean.
All children, especially very young children, need their parents to make a bridge upon which they can walk from one parent to the other. One of the ways to create such a bridge is to have a custody and visitation plan so that the child has a predictable plan of contact with both parents. At the end of today's session, we will have a homework assignment where you will be asked to define the key parenting issue between you and the other parent. I'm going to suggest to Tamika and Donovan that you focus on how to build a bridge for Kaylee with a very specific visitation schedule. Thanks to Tamika's willingness to share, we've also learned how a loyalty bind can be created even when we're not aware of it. Let's review by taking a look at some examples of some other ways loyalty binds are created. Parents create loyalty binds and put children in the middle when one parent criticizes the other parent or makes his or her negative views known to the child. One parent tries to form an alliance with the child against the other parent. One parent presents himself or herself as the victim or the loser in the separation in an effort to win sympathy from the child and bind the child closer. One parent uses the child to meet his or her emotional needs.
Children are placed in loyalty binds when their two parents are unable to communicate. Let's rejoin the group as they explore how the parents we have met face this issue.
Welcome everyone to session 3. In our last session, we focused on how difficult it is for our children when we put them in the middle of our conflicts, and we began to look at how each of us has done so, often without realizing that we were harming our kids. Now, we begin the process of looking at how each of us can build a different kind of relationship with the other parent, that person sitting across the table from you. We want to build that bridge which allows your child to move back and forth between you safely and easily.
A different kind of relationship. What does John mean by that? Professionals who work with parents who live separately and are frequently in conflict suggest that parents can succeed in communicating if they develop what experts call a co-parenting relationship. One where parents let go or disengage from the past adult issues and focus only on the job of raising their child. Let's rejoin the group as John describes in more detail the qualities of a co-parenting relationship.
What I'm suggesting is that you need to let go of your former relationship with Tomiko as your girlfriend in order to create a different type of relationship, which is more businesslike than intimate. A relationship which is built solely on your roles as Kaylee's two parents. Let's stop and visualize for a moment the other types of feelings a successful business relationship promotes, like satisfaction and trust.
In completing the homework for the next session, the participants learn about one of the most powerful communication tools in the program, commonly called the iMessage, or polite request. Put simply, this tool helps the speaker take responsibility for his or her own feelings and request a specific action to address the issue of concern. Take a look at the form the parents are asked to complete. By completing the form as an exercise, the parents are required to identify one specific parenting concern, how their child may be affected, their feelings about the situation, and the change they would like. Lastly, the parent has to identify an action that he or she can take to improve the situation. Let's return to the group as they meet the following week.
Remember that Kaylee was, like when she found that dog? You were so excited.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, Tomiko and Donovan, I see that you two are communicating. Since that's our topic today, would you mind if I asked the two of you to share with the group what's going on?
Not at all. Is that okay with you?
Fine with me. We actually started working on the homework exercises, and somehow we were able to talk. But the coolest part of all was that I was able to spend 2 hours with Kaylee last Saturday.
Interesting. And how did that happen?
Well, I started on the first exercise, the polite request, and I decided to email it to Tomiko, and I couldn't believe it. She responded. We met at the park. I have some great pictures on my phone. Maybe I could show you guys later or something. Yeah. It was like so amazing. Kaylee ran toward me and gave me a big hug. It was almost like no time had passed at all.
And Tomiko?
Everything Donovan is saying is true. I read his email, and since I knew about the exercise, I didn't just delete it because it sounded different. Before I came to this class, I didn't understand how hard it was for Kaylee not to see her dad. The way Donovan presented his request in the email gave me an opening to say yes to something that I knew would be a good thing for Kaylee.
I'm glad to hear this exercise worked for the two of you. Donovan, would you please read us your polite request?
Well, here goes. Not seeing Kaylee is hard for her because I am her father and I had been a part of her life until the last few months. When your parents refuse to allow me to even speak to her on the phone, I feel sad and worried because I don't know how she's doing without me. What I would like is to have a visit with her, and I would be willing to meet you at the park near your house at a time convenient for you. Is acceptable for you.
I think what made this easy to respond to was that the request was very specific. The park is a place we both know. It is very convenient. Kaylee likes going there, and Donovan left it open for me to choose a time. Since I'm in school all week and he's working, the weekend was really the only possibility. I felt better having a specific time frame to visit, so when I emailed him back, I just said, would this Saturday 2 to 4 p.m. work? It helped that I didn't have to involve my parents.
So the fact that Donovan's request was specific helped?
Yes, and he didn't talk about us, and he didn't say anything really negative about my parents.
It's been hard for me not knowing that her parents don't really like me. And I don't know what they say about me in front of Kaylee. So.
Most parents going through a separation struggle with some versions of this issue. Tamiko and Donovan, whether it's grandparents, extended family members, in-laws, or new partners, some of our family members may have some strong opinions about our situations, in part because they care about us, but possibly because we have used them as sounding boards to vent our frustration about the other parent. And they have come to align with our views so that they may feel protective of us and blame the other parent for the problems. If you find yourself in this situation, it is important to remember that the most important people for your child are you two parents. I suggest to Miko that if it's true that your parents have negative views about Donovan, that you help them understand how important Donovan is for Kaylee. For all of you, it is critical that you make sure that your children are protected from overhearing negative talk about the other parent or the separation itself. I also heard two important elements in Tamiko's statement about why she felt Donovan's iMessage was effective. As I recall, Tamiko said something to the effect that since she's been coming to this class, she is now aware of the impact on Kaylee of not seeing her dad. In other words, she wasn't thinking about herself or her own feelings, but was focused on Kaylee, and that awareness helped her be more open to Donovan's request. She also noticed that the request had a different tone. We're going to go and talk more about tone and how it is one of the most critical parts of communications, which can help your message get through or block it entirely. Before we go any further today with homework, and don't worry, all of you will get a chance to share your examples. I would like to define the term I statement before we go on. This is an important concept which can help you communicate with your co-parent, your children, even co-workers, or your boss. The iMessage is a statement where the speaker identifies and takes responsibilities for his or her own thoughts and feelings while describing a concern or making a statement about a topic.
If you were a part of a group like this one, you would be encouraged to use every opportunity to practice creating iMessages about the parenting issues important to you. Before we return to follow Tamiko and Donovan's progress in the next session, I would like you to reflect on the importance of the listener's role in communication. One of the most important ways that we convey respect to a speaker is by giving him or her our full attention, which means making good eye contact and avoiding distractions. Reflecting back our understanding of what has been said is also key. This practice is especially important in relationships where you have strong feelings and are apt to misunderstand what is said.
Welcome back. Everyone looks busy. We will continue this week with some further discussion of iMessages. And judging from what I see, some of you look ready for the task. Let's start with Donovan and Tamiko.
Anyway, what I came up with as the problem is that my role in Kaylee's life has been greatly reduced. Kaylee has lost an important connection with me, her father. I feel very concerned about this, as I know how it feels to be without a dad. If it is true that Kaylee feels sad and misses me, then I would like to set up a schedule where Kaylee is spending half the week with me. I would be willing to resume visits for short periods of time to start with, just to make sure it all goes smoothly for all of us. I would be willing to start the visits by meeting at the park on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday at a time convenient for you. Is this acceptable to you?
Tomiko, since we talked last time about active listening, I would like to ask you to practice responding to Donovan by starting with what I heard you say is, and then you can agree, disagree, and make a counterproposal, or ask for more time to think about it.
Well, okay, let's see. What I heard you say is that you're worried that Kaylee will suffer if she doesn't have time with you, and that you're willing to start off seeing her several times a week, even though really you want to have her half the week. And I have to say, I agree. I mean, with the visits several times a week. Kaylee had our second visit with Donovan last Saturday, and it's very clear to me that this is the best thing for her. She talked all the way home saying, Dada pushed me on the swing, and Dada bought me ice cream, and Dada whatever. When I tucked her in that night, she kept saying, when can Dada read a story? That used to be their little ritual at night. We do need to get a written plan set up, but I think for now, the 3 days per week is fine.
This might not be the time or place for it, but all the texting, it was hard for me to face the idea that I might be losing Tomiko and Kaylee. And I guess through the weeks coming here and thinking about everything that's been going on, I'm not losing Kaylee after all.
Great job, guys.
In this moment, Donovan realizes that the relationship with Tomiko as his girlfriend has ended. But the significant relationship that he has with Kaylee as his daughter will go on. But what about those of you who did not have a relationship like Tomiko and Donovan's? Maybe you had less contact with the other parent, less shared history, and less trust. Building a co-parenting relationship depends on building a sense of trust and mutual respect. One way that helped me develop trust in my son's father was to remember the positive qualities that attracted me to him when I first met. As I thought about those qualities, I realized that my son had inherited some of those same qualities. As a final exercise, the couples in the group were asked to identify 3 strengths in the other parent. Let's see how they responded.
Would anyone else like to share your co-parent strengths, or a little bit about how your child reacted when you mentioned something positive about your co-parent?
What attracted me to Tomiko back in high school was how smart she was. And she always seemed so kind and patient. During the time when I wasn't seeing Kaylee, I think I forgot about these qualities. The other day, Kaylee made it easy for me when she said, Mommy very smart, and I just agreed.
And Kaylee, what was her reaction when you agreed?
She said, Daddy's smart too. And then she patted me on the knee. And then I said, Kaylee's smart too. And she gave me a big hug. It was cool.
So Kaylee recognizes that she has 2 smart parents. And Donovan, you helped make the bridge so that Kaylee knows that she has that quality in common with both of you.
Thank you for joining me in watching Tamiko and Donovan's story as told through their interactions in this group for parents in conflict. By participating in this program, they both learned to take responsibility for how they communicated with each other, and they learned to put into practice new communication tools. Putting Kaylee's feelings and needs first helped them see that they are both invaluable parts of Kaylee's upbringing. If you are experiencing issues like these, I hope that you will remember some of these important lessons that will benefit both you and your child.